Previously on Weird View Crew.
And that concludes our review of Bloody Birthday, one of the only movies I've ever seen with an astrologer protagonist.
But that got him wondering.
I wonder if there's any other movies with astrologer protagonists.
But he would be shocked at what he would discover.
There's two of them? Two of them? They both look equally weird. What's going on? One of them's The Astrologer, 1975, directed by Craig Denny, and it was a one-time vanity project and was even considered a lost film for a brief while before it was discovered in a trunk full of porn. The other Astrologer, 1975, is also called Suicide Cult, and it's directed by James Glickenhaus, who admits that this movie is his old shame, but he later went on to be a respectable director of popular action flicks. But he started out as The Astrologer. Okay, logically, one of them has to be weirder than the other. All I have to do is find out which one is weirder.
So he began his exploration of the arts of mystic ancient forecasting using ancient tools and ancient ways and being really ancient about it.
This movie is an eternal scourge in a ghostly prison, and it's about to encounter a dark prophecy. Well, both these sound like excellent candidates, don't they? Reviewers for both movies claim either of them to be weird. Glickenhaus would go on to produce Frankenhooker and serve as executive producer on two of the Basket Case sequels. Between my reviews of Rock and Roll Frankenstein and The Item, I feel a gravitational pull towards Glickenhaus. But wait, Denny's movie was considered a lost film for the longest time, and the Paste magazine reviewer compared him to Tommy Wiseau and Neil Breen. Okay, now, Neil Breen's kind of a tall order.
Far will one man go to learn the truth.
This shouldn't be so hard.
To the edge of his sanity.
Stupid psychedelic noises. Oh, alright, we'll review them both. In fact, we're going to play the first 15 minutes of both of these. And then see if we can determine our course of action from there. We're going to see which one of these two is weirder, one that we should review based on the first 15 minutes of each feature. This is Craig Denny's own self-financed vanity film. We can't even play the movie soundtrack part because Denny apparently thought obtaining licenses for the music in your soundtrack entirely unnecessary. This is one good reason why this movie will never see an official release. Movie starts out in the best of all places to start, a carnival.
This is a true story, and it started right here in this amusement park in Long Beach, California. My name is Craig Marcus Alexander, and I was born to lie, cheat, and steal. I never meant to hurt anybody in life, but I found out that if you wanted to survive in my environment, you'd better get them before they get you.
We go into some of his childhood and how he was raised to Kearney and I guess had a juvenile offender record.
And this time I'm back at the carnival as Alexander the Great, still lying, cheating, and stealing somewhat, but only this time on a bigger scale.
Health, peace, happiness, and even wealth. Yes, wealth, ladies and gentlemen, for only $5.
But now he steals legally, as he puts it, by being the Great Alexander, a carnival astrologer, though he seems to be more of a psychic cold reader and palmist.
Right up over here, ladies. 8 tickets. That's $40.
All day long, and you got us 8 tickets? These people here all walk away. They're not interested in us.
That's $40 more than we had 5 minutes ago.
Oh, it's just crazy. Born October 6th, right?
That's correct.
By the way, you're a sidereal Virgo. You're not really a Libra. May I look at your hands, please? Your left one first. Your left hand tells the past.
He gets a girlfriend and seems to be having trouble making ends meet.
Give me
To enjoy this I've never lived in a trailer before, but...
Well, it's only temporary. I mean, with our charts and everything the way they are, we're going to be living like kings and queens very shortly. It's been 2 years now, and Darian and I are not living like kings and queens.
It's the same thing with you, Flakes. I want my 500 and I want it now.
I don't have it right now. I'm short on cash. I just put down the last bit that I had on the car.
You took the money you owe me and you bought the car?
I need a car for transportation.
And watch this guy all go all, "You see what happens, Larry," on his car.
Why can't you have any patience with anybody? I'm trying to make things go for us, and you want to walk out at the last minute.
You've had 2 years. What more do you want?
And get used to these confusing smash cuts. Denny assembles a story in tiny pieces and has more continuity errors than a Jerry Warren movie. Don't ask me who these people are, but apparently they find a cemetery hilarious.
Perhaps eccentric, Mr. Alexander, but not crazy.
Would you gentlemen care for more champagne?
No
Also, the
more for me.
carnival bit is pretty much the best part of the movie and the most coherent, so kiss it goodbye.
Look, hon, there's the peaceful resting place.
Both of you sure have a strange sense of humor.
So this couple turns out to be after gemstones, and they hire Danny to go smuggle jewelry.
I'll drink to that. Now, what kind of deal do both of you have in mind?
Boyd?
Would something like this interest you?
But then he ends up in a Kenyan prison? Again, don't ask me. This guard goes on forever with his little speech.
From the Kenya government. This will not be boring, I assure you. Those of you who are contemplating escape, let me discourage you now. Outside these walls, you will be shot on sight. If the guards and the quicksand don't get you, the snakes and the crocs will.
Oh no, not
You are
quicksand.
here.
If the government catches us, you must be our scapegoat.
Scapegoat. Which means?
Which means you may have to do some time.
But don't worry, Craig. We'll have you out in no time. Money always seems to talk in any system of government.
So it seems the Kenyan prison bit was a mere setback, and now Denny is finding out information about gemstones from the locals.
The chief knew the value of exchange. Captivated by gifts, I would now interpret his past, present, and future by reading his stars. This information would hopefully lead us to the gems we'd been searching for. He has more than 40 wives.
Time's up, that's 15 minutes. So let's see how Glickenhaus's movie starts out. I love the 1970s Micker font. They used this to mean futuristic tech on every title card and book cover until
For 400 years,
1979.
the ancient art of astrology had slumbered, ignored by scientists, feared by the church, the tool of gypsies, charlatans, and thieves, waiting for the astrologer.
This story is based on a novel by John Cameron.
Alexei Abernell is the astrologer, a brilliant, hard-headed scientist who used the enormous leaps in astronomy.
And as you can see, it requires a lot of exposition up
to
front,
refine the art of astrology,
which has something to do with the stock footage of a moon landing.
The astrologer wanted to use these new tools for the benefit of mankind. He formed an organization called Interzod, an organization which could monitor the astrological potential, or the zodiacal potential, as Alexei called it, of everyone in the world.
New words to learn: Interzod and zodiacal potential. Interzod is the government agency monitoring astrology forecasts, and the zodiacal potential is someone's astrological potential. I hope that cleared everything up for you, because there's a quiz later. Now suddenly we're using computerized astrology to investigate the biblical prophecy of a virgin birth and a child. This gets more confusing by the minute. Apparently both good and evil forces are trying to find this virgin birth child first. The astrologer here is Alexei Abernell, heading a government computerized global astrology sign tracking system, whatever the hell that is. Now that we got through more backstory than they front-loaded at the start of the Fellowship of the Ring, here is our leading man, just dripping with charisma. Alexei Abernell, the astrologer.
Voice check. Abernell. Surveillance, Sydney Bureau. Thompson here regarding Miss O'Connor.
Ms. O'Connor, what's the problem?
She's announced her intentions of running for the city council.
Don't bother to discourage her. Sooner or later, she's going to solve your problem for you. The psychopathic indications are very high. We have 32 zodiacal facsimiles, and all but 4 have been committed to asylums. If the campaign doesn't send her off the deep end, then a crushing defeat at the polls should do it. If necessary, that should be easy to arrange.
All right, we'll take care of it.
Bye.
By the way, get used to lots and lots of talking. And give up trying to understand any of it because they keep making up new words. I sense an adaptation that was all too faithful to the novel.
To accurately determine an individual's zodiacal potential for response to environmental situations and stimuli. Kajur's zodiacal potential for evil is so high that he must dominate others. He has no choice.
So this is Kajursti in India, and his zodiacal potential is right off the charts, baby. He's a cult leader in India who is also after the prophecy, blah, blah, blah.
People already born. But we had extraordinary luck in Kajur's case. He was known to the police in Bengali, Bangladesh, and Mysore. From those police records, we discovered that he was born in a hospital in Bombay and was the bastard son of a Portuguese army officer.
Excuse me, Professor. I think we should point out that we don't often work in reverse order. If the only way we had of calculating a person's zodiacal potential was by following his daily life, we'd need 3.5 billion agents. The backwards procedure we used for Kajurst is generally reserved for historical figures. Using their detailed life histories, we can check and fine-tune our zodiacal formulas, expanding them to bring more human factors and characteristics into consideration. Our Interzod computers are constantly scanning the infinite astrological configurations swirling through our universe in search of potentially troublesome ZPs. We know long before someone is born whether or not he'll need looking after.
And yes, we must have this Micker font routine at every single transition. We find out later that this is Alexei's wife, Kate, going in for a tarot card reading. Here we go again with tarot cards. Neither of these movies seem content to just stick to astrology.
Hello?
Ah, come in. Excuse me. Come in. Sit down.
Thank you.
I guess you would like to have your fortune told.
Well, yes.
Well, first you must answer some questions. Then I'll be able to construct your horoscope and predict your future. How old are you? What is your birthday? Where do you live? And what do you do?
Well, I live in New Jersey. I'm married. My husband works as a high school teacher, and I work part-time as a dance instructor.
What is your birth date?
July 22nd, 1953. I'm 23.
You're not telling me the truth. If that were your real birth date, you would be 24. Someone is exerting a strong hold over you, preventing you from telling the truth. We must strip away your pretenses. Go behind that screen and take off your clothes. Put on that robe. Then we will be able to find out who you really are.
The fortune teller doesn't believe Kate when she tells her her birthday, and apparently her psychic powers work better if you're naked. Now to India.
We have just captured Kajurst. We want you to keep him a few days here till the district magistrate comes.
I guess Kajursti has been taken prisoner now, so that wraps up. Oh, wait, the movie's still going. Okay, so we're at the Abernathy home, and Alexei drills Kate about the nudist fortune teller.
Good morning. It's 8 a.m. at WNHF, and it's...
You did what?
Well, there's nothing so bad about that, is there?
No, it sounds like fun in a way. Who was this person?
No, it was all very private.
Yes, I suppose it might be. You know, I always wanted to go talk to one of those people, but I never found the nerve to go in there. How do they go about spiritual advising? I mean, do they ask a lot of questions?
Alexa, you don't really want to hear about all this, do you?
I do want to hear about it, Kate.
It was just strange. She asked me to take off all my clothes.
She what?
Finally interrupted by this random
I'm running a
guy.
little late this morning. Perhaps I should take a bite in the kitchen?
Well, thanks for breakfast. It's time to go fly my helicopter. Last, we have this Congressman Joe Harwell coming into the story to meet with Alexei.
211 Airbus service for Paris and Rome is now ready for boarding at gate E12. BOAC flight 211 Airbus service for Paris and Rome is now ready for boarding at gate E12.
Excuse me. Aren't you Alexei Avenel?
Yes.
Congressman Joe Harwell. I met you once in Senator Wiley's office.
15 minutes, time's up. Well, that didn't get us very far, did it? I'll do the recap on both of these stinkers in just a minute, but we do have a true case of Gemini twin movies here. Even though they're radically different points of origin, they have a lot of similarities. Both of them are incredibly boring. Boring. Just yakety yak. Denny sits there narrating half the movie through, trying to patch over, basically explain the parts that he couldn't afford to film, even though he insisted on location filming, globetrotting the entire world. And as for Glickenhaus, that movie is just talk. It's just nonstop yakety yak. It's all jargon and technobabble. It's impenetrable. And the story doesn't even get off the ground until midway through the movie. But anyway, let's just do a smash recap on both of these. But no, they're not weird, and they're not even interesting. Not even remotely. Just skip them both. So how does Craig Denny as the Great Alexander work out? Alexander goes all Indiana Jones hunting jewels at an exotic Kenyan temple guarded by snakes. But no worries, his chart said that he'd be more likely to die from quicksand today, so he's good to go. Alexander has a male and a female guide to assist. Guess which one dies first? The poor dude gave his life stealing the Sankara stones so Alexander could win all the glory. But to be fair, I'd expect an armed man to come out on top when he's only robbing a damn snake. Ah, poor man we never knew. Damn the consequences, we got a bag of rocks. Andy and Marion here check in with a shady local character, get bamboozled, but what's-her-name is willing to screw her way out of this jungle if it gets her a boat. Not that it did her any good, she just dies in quicksand anyway. Alexander thanks his lucky stars to be the only survivor with a bag of rocks, so he hails a yacht back to the States. We know it's a long voyage because of all the calendar pages flying by. Gives him an excuse for a long, unlicensed music video. Alexander arrives in Tahiti looking for more local girls to lose in quicksand, but he's having a hard time finding a fence for the jewels while the police are hot on his tail. The police, or the Kenyan cop who's now gone after Alexander in Tahiti, even consults with a tarot card reader who's no help, but finds a local patron willing to tip him off. She hooks up with Alexander at a swingers bar and leads him to the cop, but the Kenyan cop just wants to shake him down. He's about to cave when the cop betrays the gal, she shoots him, gets arrested for the murder, and Alexander is home free. Alexander returns home to the States a millionaire and finally sets out building a business empire based on being the world's greatest mystic. He wheels and deals his way to the government contract where he uses his astrology powers to help them find a submarine lost in the Devil's Triangle, as you do. Alexander is so successful that he makes a movie about himself, and we go to see the movie within the movie, which ironically focuses on astrology more than the whole movie we're watching now. Alexander has moved up in the world with a fancy new mansion, and in his office he shows off his cosmic mirror. That's great, but he's called his chum Arthur here to hire him to be his financial manager. Alexander goes back to fetch his carny girlfriend, now living as a junkie hooker because everyone's lives fall apart without Craig Denny in them. They get married, and the spinning newspaper good times roll. Alexander is so rich that his mansion is full of money, so he lives out in the yard now, which is tastefully decorated with oil paintings. But the yoke of business management rests heavily on Alexander's shoulders, who plays it like a smug John Denver. Arthur, his manager, starts explaining that his business empire is spread much too thin. Alexander and his new bride have a big slow-motion fight choreographed to yet another unlicensed song. Alexander catches his wife cheating and blows the guy away. The U.S. Chessmaster General is sick and tired of getting Alex out of these scrapes. Well, Alexander is in despair now, so he has a long psychedelic flashback sequence reliving the whole movie we've just seen now. His manager Arthur comes to tell him his business empire has crumbled and delivers the movie's penultimate line, "You're not an astrologer, you're just an asshole." Meanwhile, back in the house of Glickenhaus, Interzad versus Kajursti. So Alexei, Interzad agent, boards a plane with a newly met Congressman Harwell and his assistant Rav. Alexei briefs the congressman on Kajursti and his zodiacal potential. Alexei calls for a transition on the Crab Nebula on his bat computer here on the board of the plane. The flight touches down and Alexei takes off, leaving his guest in boxers. Alexei's wife, Kate, meanders around their heavily protected home and has a flashback to when she was a student in a class Alexei was teaching, which seems to be an atomic physics class. Meanwhile, Kajursti in India is still being kept like a leashed dog, but has this messianic vision about a virgin sacrifice. He is apparently free again and back to leading his cult. Alexei and Kate go on the most genial dinner ever with Alexei's friend, archaeologist Robert Wembley. They make jokes about the beef Wellington. Wembley brings up zodiacal potential and pinpointing the Virgin Mary's birth to the exact hour. Alexei shames him for blabbing classified Interzad info in front of Kate. Alexei promises to bring him the Jerusalem document. Alexei gives a tour of the Interzad's library, communication center, and observatory, and Congressman Harwell. This library doubtless contains stories less boring than the movie we're watching now. Alexei and Harwell have a conversation about zodiacal potentials, and I feel like I'm being brainwashed into a cult called Zodianetics by now. Alexei hangs out at the observatory delivering a boring-ass sermon about Zodianetics to the congressman. He remarks how the great figures in history from Buddha to Napoleon were, this is the exact phrase, zodiacally privileged. The movie has taken a blasting soundtrack over dialogue, making it inaudible. Alexei gets home to Kate, who's in a stew because Alexei is never home and she's bored out of her mind living in a guarded compound. Alexei and Harwell visit India, where a coroner shows them the Kajursti sacrifice victims. Rav joins them, and they babble about a device that inserts dreams into people's heads. They film video with the intent of projecting this dream into Kajursti's head to trick him into killing himself. They're going to sneak into his camp at night and attach electrodes to his head to do this. Rav and Congressman Harwell opt to carry out this mission. I bet you didn't know representatives live such colorful lives when Congress isn't in session. They sneak into his camp at night, but Kajursti springs out of bed to hypnotize Rav into stabbing herself, and the cultists chase down the congressman. Alexei has a nightmare about Kate and Kajursti and awakens to the news of the failed mission. He rushes to the site, finds a gas station attendant who happens to know the true date birth of Kajursti. Back in New York, Kate visits Strip Nude for Your Psychic for another tarot reading, but the psychic assistant becomes obsessed and chases her away. Kate is somehow at a folk dance festival overseen by Kajursti, but the tarot psychic is there too and simply walks up to Kajursti and shanks his ass. That's it, bad guy's dead. Alexei visits the tarot psychic and she tells him he doesn't look like an astrologer. Alexei doesn't believe in psychics and their gifts either, ha ha ha, because he's a hard zodiacal science man, you see. They have a long debate about something special about Kate, which she herself doesn't know, but you've probably guessed. Alexei meets the archaeologist Wembley and his Jerusalem document, and we're back to the zodiacal potential of the Virgin Mary. It has occurred twice, once for Jesus and once right now. Surprise, it's Alexei's wife, Kate, who is also a virgin despite being married to Alexei for 5 years. Guess you should have spent less time looking at the Crab Nebula and more time showing her the Big Dipper, eh? Finally, somebody thinks to look for Kate, so this flunky goes to pick her up, where she's just been sleeping there stunned since Kajursti's death. Kate reveals that she actually lost her virginity at 16 and had a baby, which she put up for adoption by the church. Wembley visits a nun to ask what the hell happened to that baby, and she tells him they have no records. Alexei and Kate finally have a long-ass heart-to-heart about her adopted baby, but she actually hadn't lost her virginity. This movie has no idea how to end this discussion and just fizzles to a stop there. So, that is the two Gemini Twin The Astrologer movies. And boy, was that a worthless exercise. It's a curious case with these two twin movies, which share many of the same faults. And you know what's the one big thing missing from both of these movies? Astrology! for all the jargon and babble about angular Saturn in Denny's movie and zodiacal confirmation in Glickenhaus's movie, they could have been talking about anything. It could have been magic rocks. It could have been Kryptonian. It could have been anything. So, astrology terms were just one more buzzword for them. Not to mention, in both cases, the only two movies named The Astrologer. In both cases, the astrologer protagonist was actually provably wrong in more than one in a couple cases, which doesn't bode very well for the power of astrology. Now, Danny's movie is the one that I consider more watchable, believe it or not. It does have talent a little bit. He's kind of a ham. It's also a big sloppy Valentine to himself. Reportedly, Craig Denny inherited a whole bunch of money, or somehow came into a whole bunch of money and basically blew it having fun, trotting the globe and making his little vanity project movie. I can understand that. At a certain point, you get so much money that it's either go into the arts or take up drugs. All right, so I can't ride Denny too hard about that. It's a muddled mess of a movie, though. As for Glickenheim learned his lesson and commented that this movie, which is 79 minutes long, was probably 60 minutes of dialogue. This is Glickenheim himself talking in an interview. I didn't think it was interminable then. I thought it was great and interesting and fascinating to listen to, but then later on, he said, I realized by watching the audience that the only parts they liked were the parts with action, and that's what led him to make action movies. Now, good on Mr. Glickenheim for, reading the audience and taking a turn. But still, it took you a whole movie to find out, oh, people want things to happen in movies? Aha! I could have had a VA. That's like selling cars, and then after the first year sales come in, oh, they're supposed to start? Aha! People use cars to go somewhere. Anyway, all right, boy, action in movies, what a concept. I mean, this was 1975, they'd seen movies before. Anyway, both of these guys, man, really, it's a curiosity case and all that. Glickenheim is just watching paint dry dead, with a story that makes no sense. As for Denny, I get it that he's an incompetent filmmaker, as the Esquire article called him, comparing him to the Tommy Wiseau and of course Neil Breen. No. Here is Neil Breen boxing with a tiger. Okay, Neil Breen is crazier in his sleep than Craig Denny was on his most manic day, okay? As it is, man, as far as astrology movies go, that's it. That's the only two you got. So perhaps the makings of a great weird movie lies not in the stars, but in ourselves. This is Penguin Pete with 366 Weird Movies, telling you if you're seeing stars that have something to do with your destiny, chances are somebody just conked you over the head.